I'm Keenan Williams, founder of Stratum Growth, co-founder of Resi, and proud host today to be talking about emerging technologies and entertainment. We have two phenomenal panelists. I'm not going to do the injustice of trying to do their backgrounds. I'm going to let them kick off. We have Lowell and Rod. And Lowell, please kick off.
Sure. I'm a corporate and securities partner in the law firm of Perkins Coie, and I'm based in the Palo Alto office, and I'm your typical startup company lawyer that has been focused on fintech for most of my career. So I've spent an awful lot of time working on crypto and blockchain in the last few years, and been seeing a lot of interesting intersections between that world and the entertainment world. Both in terms of just the concept of fan engagement and outreach to fans through various types of new financing, and also kind of some interesting new, I would say, securities laws that have come about in the last few years. So for me, it's been an interesting run to see how these two worlds are kind of colliding right now.
Awesome. I think there's a lot to dig in there. Before we kick off, Rod, could you give us your background as well?
Yep. So I am Rod Chappell. I am based here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a CEO and executive director of HBCU Direct. And there are a lot of things that I've done over the years. I've been an entrepreneur for the past 20 years, and most of the businesses have been either sports, entertainment, or technology. And so I have anywhere from the BET Black College Tour that traveled around the country for years, on the ground experiential events, to IP TV, having a channel in that space, as well as I've owned an indoor football team, two-time champion. So I've done a lot of things in the sports arena as well. And currently I am working in the esports space, just launched an esports business centered around HBCUs, which a lot of the work is. We also have a new apparel company. And then my day job is with NASA. So I work in the Office of STEM Engagement, where we help get funding to HBCUs and other minority serving institutions. So, my career has been a carousel road, been highs and lows, ups and downs. But all those things are things that I've been passionate about. And so that's a lot of things I want to bring to the table today.
That's fantastic. We have a smorgasbord of details and directions to go into. Yep. But Lo, I think you gave the key word, which is intersection. So I'd love to just jump in and say, can we take a 20-year macro scope? What did you see in 2000s, 2010s in terms of technology advancement when it comes to entertainment, music labels transitioning to streaming, sports and entertainment turning into esports? Now you have companies that are doing it on the collegiate and high school level. Also blockchain being a way to run financing and betting when it comes to gaming. Where would you like to start if you were to look at a macro picture?
Well, I mean, I think, there really is an interesting sort of historical perspective here, because a lot of, frankly, what is blockchain now came from, this sort of streaming and distributed, kind of technology associated with Napster and some of the other music download sites, and just the whole concept of being able to share a single record among multiple people through this sort of BitTorrent type technology is really one of the most important aspects of blockchain. So in some ways it kind of all goes back to Napster, and you sort of are combining Napster, kind of BitTorrent type technology with the concepts of cryptography in order to develop this cryptographically secure ledger that is then shared by multiple people. So, yeah, I think the history here is really interesting in terms of the technologies kind of coming together in various spaces. But and esports has been another big driver, and certainly that has just kind of gone ballistic over the last 10 years especially. And I definitely think there's a lot of kind of crazy stuff in the blockchain space that is a little bit dangerous, that I think people have to be somewhat careful of, especially as this thing starts to unfold into the mainstream and become a little bit more of a place where lots of people are interacting. And there's some great themes about fan engagement and monetizing fan engagement and data from fans and figuring out where the fans are and what they want through this type of technology that allows people to kind of engage in this much broader direct kind of methodology. And I think that's always been an interesting place for the entertainment industry, is to figure out how to go direct to fans and not through so many middlemen. And that is really, at a very fundamental level, some of the promise, I think, of a blockchain solution, is being able to have that direct connection to your fans as an artist and as a brand, as a label.
I think it is. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm making the same point, but that really is the idea of being able to go direct and to reach this, through this sort of very decentralized platform that the technology provides, being able to do outreach much more broadly. And there's a lot of interesting dovetails with the way the securities laws have evolved over the last 5 and 10 years. That is also, I think, helping this notion kind of come to fruition, where people are able to go more directly to their fan base.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see D2C. Within 10 years, you saw people who are making, one-off individuals making millions of dollars streaming their games on YouTube. Then you saw Twitch take, just the insurmountable leap to become the platform or the benchmark for game streaming. Then you saw the global phenomenon that was Fortnite, that started to make money doing live concerts within the game, right? Mm-hmm. Transitioning from the Zynga in-app purchases to now being able to stream concerts. And then esports, which a lot of people think are still in its infancies, it's kicking off as a multi-billion-dollar market. So Rod, where do you see some of those 10 to 20 year transitions within entertainment and sports?
Yeah, so I mean, if you literally look back at 2000, 99, 2000, 2001, we were on the ground. So there was a lot of work to happen to bring experiences and content to life. And while that still happens live, we'll just say minus COVID, that was when people were gathering together, and that was really the model to do that. So over time, and I think the music industry and the sports industry has helped transition that to being able to have a better experience through technology without having to do a lot of work. So your experiences are, I'm at home, cell phones and smartphones have helped through this transition. So now I'm able to have that almost exact same experience without doing anything, without paying any money in some instances. So Napster, as Lowell talked about, they started this and they were doing it where there was no money exchange, which was the issue. But it triggered something with people to say, I can get this without having to pay, leave my home, which is now transitioned to those other experiences that are happening on your phone, on your computer, in your home, less money, but more eyeballs for an entertainer or an artist. And so I think the transition has been the on-ground platform and moving to the technology platform. That transition has caused a lot of confusion in who gets what, who owns what, who's protected. And so I think the industry is now figuring out how to protect the people that are creators of the content. And even Twitch. So Twitch is one of our partners. When you talk about the music part of Twitch, initially when it started, people were playing everyone's music. And then you had the blockchain and the bots to come into the system and say, okay, you can't play that song. You can't play that song, to the point where they will cut your channel if you're using a lot of things that aren't your content. And so that's even changing more to allow independent artists to come into this fold. So I think there's a broader opportunity now than it was then. There are more players. I think people just need to figure out where they play in this space, and technology is going to be key in doing that.
It's really interesting. Both of you picked up on dark spaces or areas of gray that have risk. I'd like to go a little bit deeper there. Lowell, can you kind of touch on some of the risks you were mentioning earlier?
Well, I'd love to. I mean, I think especially I'm a corporate securities lawyer, so for me the securities laws is kind of the starting place. And I think we've seen some really amazing entertainment folks get interested in blockchain during kind of the 2017 ICO craziness that the SEC has begun to shut down, and that there's a very important distinction between promoting products and promoting securities, and to the extent that a crypto project, you really have to know which is which, and it's hard to tell on its face, because I think a lot of the crypto projects will take a position that they're a product, not a security. But I think the artists need to exercise some independent judgment about that, and really understand kind of what they're getting involved with as they start to do it. But the general idea of this kind of artists being able to directly engage with fans, I think, is going to, as Rod was saying, I mean, we're going to sort out all the middlemen stuff, but that is the promise, is really kind of making everything a lot more direct and streamlined, and having much more rich data and other kinds of experience directly all the way to the artists and the labels and the brands, that they can start to mine and understand kind of where their next concert should be, or which particular game is hot. These days they'll have all that data. So it's the digitization, right, of everything, including payment for some of these products and services, and that's, I think, a super interesting place in time for all of us to sort of see this happening. Where you've kind of migrated from the internet being this amazing place for information exchange to now also value exchange, and I think that's kind of the promise of crypto. But it unlocks so many business models when you do that. Entertainment is a huge one when you think about the complicated web of middlemen involved generally in the industry.
Billions will be unlocked.
Yeah. So, as I think about music, and you think about music producers, tagging yourself, over the last decade has been one of the things. When your song comes on, you're tagged and they know who produced the beat. But they're really tagging themselves also so you can know this is my beat. And so what's now also happening is those tags are embedded. People can't see who the tag is. And so as you are playing the song or listening to someone, you might hear the artist, you know who that artist is, you may not know who produced that. And so with the tagging piece of it, that's a part of the protection that folks will now have to say, okay, that thing played for 5 minutes. My tag was in there for 3 minutes. Therefore, that's going to trigger dollars for me or whoever I'm involved in. It might have been 3 producers, so there's 3 tags in there. So those things are going to be embedded in music. They're being embedded in movies. So they know when a movie's playing that shouldn't be playing, or that is not being paid for. And then people are going to get their receipts, for, okay, you played this 100 times. Now you owe this person. And so at the end of the day, when we segment out where those dark spaces are, technology is going to be able to say that this did happen. You were involved in it. And then now you owe a certain amount of dollars to these artists. And I think that's great for the people that are trying to do it the right way. It's probably not so great for people who are not trying to. So I think there should be a little bit of fear in this space as well for those that are taking that what doesn't belong to them. But in this society now, even with like GitHub and things like that, there are people giving away things that you can take. So that's a trickier piece of the pie that I know we'll sift through over time. But in places where you're giving things away and then someone's taking your stuff and making more of it or better or however you want to do it, I'm interested to see where that goes in this space.
Well, I want to pick up on one thing Rod said just a minute ago, which is this notion of smaller revenue from larger fan base. I think it's also, fractionalization generally of the art, and having, as you were talking about, having little clips, maybe in a montage that you get paid for. But in general, this is one of the interesting things I think that the kind of cryptocurrencies help with is micropayments and being able to really fractionalize the products and services to such an extent that that you can actually commercially do it in a way that you couldn't if it was all bank accounts and wire transfers, and so that's going to help, I think, unlock this much more freewheeling. It's part of this trend, right, of channel explosion, where there's so many different channels of media to consume and types of media and everything else. I think having payment fractionalization is just going to add to all of that. I think it's a very sort of interesting time, a very free time for art.
So there's two topics I kind of want to touch from both of your points. Mm-hmm. You have this infringement space that's being diluted, right? Many ways now for the owner and creator to put their stamp on their product, right? Then you have this DTC model, which is I'm creator, I'm charging and collecting directly from consumer. So for instance, a platform that's blown up in the last 24 months, and no joke intended, but OnlyFans, right? Mm-hmm. What grew from a very sort of salacious, direct new medium for people to showcase personal life has now become almost 50% of people. Hey, I gamble, pay me, I'll tell you how I bet. Or, hey, my OnlyFans is directly for my music drops. Don't want to use Spotify's, YouTube's of the world, right? And OnlyFans protects me from infringement because I'm charging directly to the consumer. And then you have new startups like Breaker, which is, hey, music artists, I'm going to help you blow up by going directly to influencer videos. So now instead of trying to organically promote on social media, you pay this influencer who dance or makes TikTok videos, and they'll play you in the background, and you'll charge your own rates, right? So this sort of control of pricing. What do you guys see between like the OnlyFans substantiated, almost institutional platform versus the Breaker, new startups in the world who are both trying to just mediate payment streams and the way cash is collected and bring it direct channelization?
I don't have any. I don't know who's going to win that one. That one they're both good models, and maybe both exist in 10 years.
Yeah, I agree. Well, first of all, those are two. And my assumption is, if you think about, well, first copycats and then people who have creative ideas that just need the technology to make their idea come to life. The technology options are going to be out there. So I'd imagine there are going to be hundreds of these people doing these things. It's disruption, but it's also distribution. And, when you talk about the big companies who were making billions of dollars and then started having to distribute some of that income to the actual people that are doing the work, there was an issue. So you started doing 360 deals. So, hey, I want to control everything that you have so I can make sure that the dollars I put into you, I get back. And then the 360 deals started going away and people started saying, I want to carve out this much because you're distributing, the work as well as the resources and the money that comes in. So I expect that this would explode and explode enough so that the consolidation becomes something that the larger entities want to do. Just know that they're watching, especially with the data. They can see all of the things that are happening. They can see all of the views that are happening. They can see all the people that are engaging. And then there's a value to that. So whatever that value to that is, if you're the small guy, you can say, he or she can say, okay, am I willing to take $1 million for what I just created, and I really had $5 last week? Or do I try to grow that, capitalize, and then get $10 million, $20 million from it? So you're going to have some consolidation in that space as well. You clearly see Disney loves to play in this space. The Googles love to play in this space. They love to go snatch you up with your early technology so that you don't get to be as big. So it'll be very interesting to see where this nets out, even with the ones that you talked about, because most people are looking for an exit. So, they start it, they grow it, they want to exit. And then who do they exit to? The people that can afford to pay them. I saw something, and this is I count the sports industry and the sneaker industry all as the same, where Supreme was just purchased this week by Vans, right? For $2.1 billion. All right. So,
yeah,
right. So, okay, what's happening there? right? So it's about controlling the dollars. They were able to see how much money was being triggered just from the apparel space. And I know Supreme sells heavily in China. So they're probably zeroing in on a market that they want. That's going to be the same thing for this space as well. Even though it's distributed, it's going to roll up to key players that will help try to grow that.
Sorry about that. That's actually pretty interesting because there's another interesting comp I wanted to bring up to both of you. Were you guys aware earlier this year the Instagram page Daquan was purchased by Warner Media for $85 million?
I didn't see that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so almost 16 million followers with like a almost 90% DAU rate. And so those eyeballs are just super accretive to a media platform like Warner. So benchmark set where IG pages are being bought. You see Disney is just the penultimate market leader in D2C distribution, right? Disney Plus, with all their acquisitions. And now you're starting to see in the sports world, there's a Nets player who joined a platform that allow you to buy shares in his performance, right? And so these are three different sort of benchmarks that are 2020 related. Where do you guys see new benchmarks potentially being set in 2021? For instance, Gary Vee said this week, I think Adobe could be the new TikTok, right? Are there institutional players or startups that you think are going to set new benchmarks in 2021?
Okay, so you saying new. So are you saying startups that have not started yet?
No, those that could be on the fringe, on the cusp.
Yeah, so all right. So the worlds are merging. And as you can see, there are a lot of entertainers. You look at Kevin Hart that are bringing these worlds together because they are either content owners themselves or they have access to other content owners that can create a world around them and then go out and bring people together. You see Beyonce doing this. You know, you saw something happen today with her and Peloton. Right. So the bigger your voice is today and your ability to gather the Tidal, she's using the same model as Tidal. I think the better opportunity. So I don't necessarily know if it's the technology that will drive it. It will drive the expansion of it. I think it's the content creator that will help drive how it happens. And then the technology follows. The technology is just the method for them to get their experiences out there. So I think the tech companies that are partnering with them or the tech companies that they create will be the leaders in this space. And then the tech companies that are existing now need to go partner with somebody that can get them those eyeballs, those 86 million eyeballs or whoever it is, in order to really play in the space. And if you can control that, I think you have an opportunity to grow in the very near future.
Yeah, I see it more from the middleman perspective, I suppose, than from the entertainer perspective. And some of the platforms that I've seen in the market have this interesting thesis of being a crowdfunding portal that is more able to go direct to retail, you know, and essentially capitalize on fan engagement and kind of being in that market, soliciting, you know, even securities or in some cases, you know, swag or other kinds of, you know, brand engagement opportunities. But, you know, there's these, I think, online platforms that are going to try to roll up a lot of fan engagement for, you know, whichever artists are, you know, kind of interested in this new direct to consumer kind of model. And it's hard to say which artists will, but if some of them start to gain traction, it'll be a snowball.
Yeah, think about what Akon is doing, right? So Akon is owning the top side of it, where there's content. He's even got products. He's got lighting. He's got the things that are needed in a household, and then he's got the payment system, you know, that you actually pay everything through. So he gets to watch all of the transactions, hit the levers up or down in order to make whatever he kind of wants to happen. And if you are the owner of the payment system and you can move the audience to make payments, you control a great piece of the pie. And it's your choice of whether you're going to do that and grow or whether you're going to do that and sell. But I think the merging of those worlds is a really, really big opportunity. And that middleman that Lowell's talking about could be from either side. I'm a middleman, so I am bringing this side and this side together in order to create experiences, right? So how do I stay in the game? Do I stay in the game by having more content and more opportunities for people to view things, or do I go partner with one of those sides and we merge in order to try to drive these things? So there's a squeeze on the middleman. More money is possible because there's a broader audience, but the money for each concept or each experience may be lower.
Yeah, and it's always, to me, the opportunity is sort of, always where the most pain is going to be felt, and that to me is the disintermediated kind of old school middleman, right? Has to reinvent themselves in order to live in this new digital world. So that's where I see a lot of the innovation happening, is kind of rethinking how to do that, and hopefully it's a better and more fair and more sort of transparent system. Would be nice.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, if there was a bet, Lowell, I'll ask you about the payment stream, and Rod, I'll ask you more so about the sort of control piece, right? So for Lowell, going into next year, if I'm a budding creative, I have some following, I really want to scale it, and I'm looking to monetize. Maybe not an exit, but everything I put out, I want to earn revenue on. What do you think is the safest way for me to approach monetization? Direct to consumer, there is no platform, there's no marketplace, or marketplace where there's a tech-enabled middleman. And for Rod, if I'm a creator, what is the best system I should be leveraging where you think is the safest amount of control, least amount of copyright infringement?
I hate to say it, I'm not enough of an expert on this to really give you a very good answer, but my hunch would be that direct to consumer is going to be a better deal for you in general, as those technologies start to grow. But it's a classic problem, because I think there's always value in what middlemen offer, and sort of by definition, you get what you pay for sometimes. And so it kind of depends on you. Are you able to really do the work of the middleman and disintermediate them, or do you need to outsource some of that to gain awareness and eyeballs? And but yeah, I think it's worth figuring out kind of what your personal strategy is in terms of whether you go to a marketplace or whether you try to do it yourself.
Would you recommend that creator leverage crypto or stay trying to collect cash over Stripe or the payment platforms?
Well, I would say it's still a little early, I think, on the crypto, and there's still a little bit of, I think, hair to worry about. I think it's certainly something you can navigate with the right, kind of intermediaries, but knowing who those right intermediaries are is still a little early. But I welcome it. I love seeing artists come and embrace this stuff, and there are a few, Imaging Heap and some others have taken this path and are sort of blazing a trail, which is great. But it's maybe a little early for somebody who doesn't already understand crypto.
Makes sense. So Rod, just to reinforce, I'm budding. I want control. I'm selling merch. I'm selling content. I'm selling creative. What's the safest way for me to go about it?
So I'm going to call this the middleman hedge, right? So you have to use the platforms to create the volume, right? So we'll just use Twitch as an example, or YouTube as an example. They have really stringent rules, right? So as you're putting content out there, you're garnering eyeballs, views. People may like the content. But you don't own the content because it stays on that platform for a short window of time unless you pay to keep it out there, because you're really paying for bandwidth, If you can craft something. So what we're doing is we are repurposing our IPTV channel that we had 8 years ago. We were streaming high definition 8 years ago, live events with a T1 line, and we didn't keep it up, right? So now we are repurposing that. So what we find and build on the channels where, I don't know, 100 million people look at Twitch a day, right? So whatever we can build and grow there is something that we would then put in our own distribution stream, because we can now carry the followers. So it may be different content, but it's the same type of content, maybe the same type of people that can now bring an audience here, where I can then generate ad dollars, revenue dollars, cash transactions in my own platform. So it's kind of a hedge. You do want to use what's there, what may be free or cheap, to get to what this other side may be. And then you can control more of the pie from whatever your goals are. So I think you hedge. I think you do both. I think long term, once you can build that, then you'll control all of the assets that come in and out of that system. If you can find a partner, I'm going to keep talking about the entertainment piece of it, that can help you push that faster. And it may be a partner that's in this system right now that wants a piece of their own thing. I'm dealing with something now. So where commercials that may compete with my partners airing are problematic. So my partners want exclusivity. Well, I can guarantee you exclusivity, because someone might drop in using digital to know I'm running this commercial. That's a soda commercial. Oh, he's running a soda commercial. Let me drop in the competitive soda commercial. That's how close this is going to be. Well, if I want to control that, I need to make sure that I sit there on my own and control everything that happens. So that's where I think we're going to go. And that's where I probably would say people should go.
Got it. So just a quick synopsis for listeners. If you don't know crypto, learn the space before you try to jump in. Avoid ICOs. And if you're a content creator, distribution is king. Always do the middleman hedge for now. There's enough platforms with enough stringent rules for you to still win and monetize. Just have to give a piece away, right? So instead of being greedy, you can give up a piece for scale, but also A/B test. Do your own organic and go to a paid platform. That makes a lot of sense. If you were to both just look at the outlook of next year from a, no holds bars, distribution is becoming super disintermediated. Cable doesn't own, streaming platforms don't necessarily own. As a creator, I can go to 16 different places at once. Probably doesn't even dilute my brand. When it comes to themes where someone's trying to optimize distribution, optimize eyeballs, and make money, what do you think they have to do, right? What does the creator, what does the esports player have to do, right? If DraftKings comes in next year and says, 2021, we want to combine gambling, online, approved to some degree, or fantasy, with esports, and we want to combine fantasy and esports, right? Bet on your favorite team for what they will do in these tournaments, and you can win cash, right? If that is a possibility, should esports players be trying to figure out monetization now or scale now for eyeballs, right? And for Lowell, when it comes to securities law, what areas do I just stay away from because that's just too risky, other than ICOs, when it comes to distribution and monetizing? Again, all with anticipating something like a DraftKings and esports come together in 21, or TikTok and Adobe come together in 2020.
You want to go first, Lowell? You want me to go?
Go for it, Rod.
All right. So I am always going to be a proponent of you controlling your own destiny. And if you are able to grow your personal brand, they will come looking for you. So I would not stop. You gotta corner a market. So if you're a gamer that is really good at gaming, and you got, let's just say Ninja, you got a bunch of people, guess what? Somebody's going to give you $50 million for their particular channel to keep you there. And then you garner the other things that come along with that. So I would say you stay the course on what you are really good at. If you have mergers that happen, that's only beneficial to the person that has grown their content to a maximum amount of spaces. So I would say that I would not worry about what's happening in the market unless you're in that business. So when you talk about the middleman's watching something different. Middleman may be watching the artist and watching the mergers and knowing and trying to get into a space where they can benefit when all of it happens. And so I would say if you are the business part of that, not necessarily the artist part of that, you got to watch all angles and make sure that you're in when the trigger is pulled, because those mergers are going to happen, because now through COVID, people can now see, hey, we can actually exist not leaving the house. If you'd have said that 10 years ago, people would have said, no way, it's not possible. You know, people are going to go lose their mind after the first month. Well, we're 9 months in and we can see it's almost a new norm where you go out, you come back and bring all the content back home and then consume it. And so you're going to see more of that as people get used to that, which is going to have ramifications for, you know, brick and mortar. But so I'm interested to see all of that, but I would say stay the course on whatever it is you own.
Yeah, I think in terms of some of the hot buttons of you know, combining esports and gambling, in addition to securities laws, of course, is going to be the underlying gaming laws, and you know, there's just you know, in many respects, I think as artists and labels and brands kind of start to get involved in going direct to their fans, they have to, you know, one of the values of middlemen, frankly, is regulatory compliance. And to the extent that you're going to go direct, you're going to have to take on that challenge and essentially DIY the regulatory piece. And so, you know, I think you need to really be careful if you're doing that. If you're kind of an artist that's just going to go out and figure out how to, you know, raise money, let's say, for buying an esports team. There's ways to do that, and a lot of people have talked about using crypto to do that. And I think it's a very interesting concept. But you gotta wrestle with the securities laws piece of it and understand how to do it. So if you're relying on an agent to nail that part of it, then you've got to go learn it yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of avenues and channels that someone could take if they want to figure out monetization. But the consensus between this panel seems to be double down on your niche, figure out how to own a space, and distribute as much as you can before you try to worry about multiple streams of monetization, right? If something works, double down and expose it for 100% of what it can be versus trying to do it 6 ways of monetization. Kind of sticking with the theme of what you might see next year, do any areas in the space scare you? You know, Keen, in the last 10 to 5 years, we've seen X. If it doesn't stop next year or in the coming years, we could see Y. Is there any themes like that worry you guys?
I mean, I'm an eternal optimist. So, you know, I feel like as things are happening, the level will set itself. The consumer and the market and the supply and demand will set itself over time. So there may be some things that are happening now that are happening because of the COVID transition. We'll call it the COVID transition. And assuming we get this under wraps, now what happens? So, you know, I have some people that say, hey, music and live concerts is never going to be what it used to be, just based on COVID. And then you have people that say, as soon as this is over, you're going to have the longest stretch of people outside activating together than in the history of the industry. So we don't know which one is going to be. But what we do know is people want to consume content. So the content builders need to be sharpening their knives in whatever it is that they're doing. Because I do believe when we're out of this, people are going to be seeking things to do. They may go get it and bring it home, or they may go get it and stay out. So I don't think anything is negative necessarily about what's happening. We got 9 months of COVID. Now, pre-COVID, where you see things happening, like the HoloLens. We talked about AR, VR, and things like that. So the HoloLens and the pricing of the HoloLens. Right. So I think there are going to be some issues there unless they can bring that price down. But I think the experience that the HoloLens can provide to audiences is wonderful. But you got to be able to tap into a market. So I think that's one thing that is out there that is too costly to play with now. But once the price comes down, I think it'll meet some of the market demands that people thought it would be, because it's dope, and the content that you can bring into that space will allow you to kind of live in both worlds, the world where you get out or the world where you're staying home. So that's some technology that I think that is probably a negative now that could become a positive.
Yeah, maybe I'll flip it on you. I think one of the things that I've been worried about, and this is a fuddy-duddy thing to say, but is the lack of ability to own my own content. I think is something that obviously is going away. Everything's going to be subscription and micropayments, I think, in the future. And I guess on the optimistic side, I feel like I'm getting used to that. And I knew I would, and I knew I'd go down. I'd get sucked in just like everybody else, and it would be the richness of the and flexibility of being able to, really demand content anytime, anywhere from the entire library of content is a pretty cool idea. And this. The notion of sort of hoarding my own content, I think, has gone away. So that's probably a positive thing.
Let me add something to what Lowell said. Now, one thing we have figured out, I think, through this as well, is there's some crappy content out there, right? So we'll just call it the culture allows you to know that faster than in the past. And so I would say for those who are not creating as strong a content, you got to get your weight up and do better, because I think you have the ability to go away faster just as quickly as you came into the space. And I watched some movies and shows over the last 9 months where I'm like, wow, somebody gave them money to a budget to actually do this. And I'm surprised. So I think being able to identify what's good and what's bad quickly is going to be something that's going to help some people a lot and hurt. So just putting content out just to do it, that's not what I'm saying. I mean good content.
That's interesting that you say that, because I've the one thing I have felt about this subscription and the explosion of sort of the channels and the lack of curation that's associated with current media consumption, I think is that, you know, there's so many options that you get sort of deer in the headlights kind of analysis paralysis as you're flipping through channels trying to find content. So I'm glad to hear you feel like there's enough content curation happening, and that is going to accelerate, that the average person sitting on their living room couch can find something interesting to watch. Yeah,
I had 2 Gen Xers, so they helped me through. No, we're not watching that. Yeah, okay, we'll watch it, but if it's not good, then just know we'll never watch another by that kind of thing. So I'm living in that space right now, and I'm learning through them, because they're going to be the next ones making decisions about how things show up for us. So it's pretty interesting to see all that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a clear upside of saturation. Really specific curation and tons of optionalities. Just skip to the next one. And speaking of bad content, I was waiting to see if someone was going to bring it up, but our biggest failure of 2020, Quibi, which a lot of people said had terrible content. I saw some good, but I saw a lot of bad. But that was the first, right? So Quibi fell on the sword. We're probably going to see some more competitors, maybe not copying short form as a focus, but definitely in terms of one central platform, tons of, independent or specifically curated, non-studio branded content coming out live, right? Do you think that we'll see that again in 2021, or you think the next Quibi will take longer?
I'll go. I without giving too much of a plug to one of my clients, I do have an interesting project that
I don't know who they are, by the way, Lo.
Yeah, that's fair. But I'll just say generically that these guys have figured out a way. This is another intersection with crypto, and a really good use case for crypto, in my view, is the notion of crowdsourcing a film production, or essentially crowdsourcing the curation of which films get produced by creating an incentive mechanism using a digital currency, to compensate people for upvoting content and scripts, and kind of taking the the traditional role of Hollywood moguls and putting it in the hands of people, and actually doing a much more, when you think of that alone, just the political implications of that, as well as the entertainment implications of that, it's pretty cool to see what kind of films come out of a system where that is happening, and you're really crowdsourcing and using the power of digital currency to incentivize.
Wow, Lowell, you are speaking my language. We are doing something like that in the HBCU space for content creators that are not necessarily the short film piece of it, though that may be an opportunity. Some of them are making long film pieces as well that don't have access to the distribution. And so we are giving them distribution on this side through that crowd sourcing piece to identify what are the best ones. And so we're working in the same channel. That's wonderful because it validates some of the things that we're doing. But yeah, so to answer your piece, Keenan, Quibi, when I saw it originally and Meg Whitman was going to be the leader of it, it triggered a thought of that could go wrong real fast because of the separation of thought between who's accessing it, who's they want to watch it, and who's delivering it. And if you become too structured in the traditional format of it and not let the market lead it, you can get to the point where you spend a lot of money and it didn't work. And so I think the market's got to tell you what they're ready for, because Snapchat's growing, right? So is 10 minutes too long? Is 13 minutes too long? The data's got to be able to tell where that happens, and you got to be cool, right? So you got to have good content. It's got to be cool, but it's got to be organic. And I think that's where the pushing down with the funds and the dollars to get Quibi out, to get it moving so fast, and then you run out of money because you put too much money in at the front half of it. I don't think that's going to happen in 2021. I think it's going to be like we talked about it originally today. Somebody might buy the little guy that's got it right, and then grow it because that's an organic growth that needed some boost and maybe cash boost. I think that's probably a better model than trying to start it and push it down.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. You have an opportunity for both of your theses to come to fruition, right? Facebook Watch, Snapchat content, Clubhouse, right? The newest social media phenomenon because it's voice. I think content is going to see a new face. If you were to flip a quarter, it's not going to be heads, it's not going to be tails. It's going to be a medium where worlds are going to continue to converge. So Lowell, your client that's doing crypto for creators, they're going to continue to scale or see opportunities to scale and figure out how to A/B test their way to success. And Rod, to your point, for content creators, leveraging what's existing versus having to try to lean on creating their own, it's going to be a continual easy decision as you see platforms allow you to monetize and go to D2C. If you were to both kind of leave a final comment, what do you think, if there's a burgeoning technology or a space you guys have to watch, I can see some inflection point coming soon, maybe not next year, but soon. What is the space or the vertical to focus on? As an observer, an investor, someone not engaged in, but a consumer, right? If I'm a consumer, where would you say place your bet, place your chips to really focus on?
Okay, so this is my personal opinion because I said, sports entertainment technology, esports is a baby right now. And while the traditional esports, you see the Fortnites, you see the Call of Duties, the NBA 2Ks and things like that. You probably get about 40 of them that have really strong brand names, but there are over 100,000 games. Now, as these games, and I call them esports because people are competing and winning money, those games are now going to be on mobile devices, right? So that explosion is going to happen, and people are going to find games that they like, games that they love. They're going to have options. So if I were going to say, what's the movement? I say the esports is at the beginning because it's really not on phones yet. But once it gets to those billions of phones that are out there, then you're going to have a skyrocketing of options for content and access to people every day. So we're in this esports space, not just because of today, but because of what's going to happen tomorrow and the growth opportunities that are there.
I think for me, it's about data and you know, the general idea of access to data and really having much more granular ability to know where your fans are, what they think, you know, which concerts were really the most successful, and having that direct knowledge and the way of slicing and dicing data. I think the whole concept of, you know, I mean, part of this is a Silicon Valley corporate lawyer. You know, we see these trends, you know, kind of coming, and everybody jumps on a bandwagon. Big data has been an interesting trend for a long time. But I think, you know, coming to the entertainment industry and having artists really have access to their data is going to be, I think, an interesting thing to watch in 2021, because it's going to be something that I think, you know, as they go more direct to their fans and either get funding, whether it's crypto or some other means, that I think the trend is there for them to also own a lot more of the data at a more granular level.
I agree with you both. I think my theme to double down on is kind of a merge of the two. I think esports, albeit in its infancy, is a very US-based infancy. I think if we were in Asia right now, we would have a 5-year track record of being able to watch, live stream, you know, million viewer RPG games where you had teams of 5 to 10 competing directly in the Call of Duties of the world or the Fortnites of the world. If we were in Europe right now, there are esport FIFA teams that are making millions of dollars a year just playing FIFA, competing in the same couple tournaments because of live streaming, or South America for that matter. So I think the convergence is going to be on the US, seeing this explosion of what the total size can be. And I'm a big fan of the folks focusing on the collegiate and high school level, right? You know, so Delane at Play VS, some of the young people that are across the board doing collegiate esports, HBCU specific and non, is a big convergence I'm betting on. And I think the other side is predictive analytics. You know, so I'll also agree with you. The control is in big data. Big data has been a theme forever, but specifically if I'm a creator of content, knowing my audience analytics and figuring out how to monetize based on that predictive analytics is key for me, because then I can start to double down on producing what I know wins versus what doesn't, right? As a creator, I can limit let me put this out there and see how it goes versus, oh, I know this wins. With this type of audience, at this type of demographic, at this type of day, I'm going to even build a team around me to help me double down on that content. And so I think for sure both of your worlds are going to continue to collide next year. But I guess in my theme, it'll be those two ways. But I know it's 3:02. Thank you both for being such phenomenal guests on this panel and giving us your time. Apologies on the analytics to the audience who saw the delay. But I did ask for questions and didn't see any. So with that, I think we can wrap it up.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care.